Hello, my name is Dante Renee, and welcome to the 10 Room Bizarro YouTube page where I talk about films that I believe need to be talked about more. Like tonight's film, this is 1983's Little Show-Offs. 1983's Little Show-Offs, and a film by Zachary Strong, and it says, "The Young and Hot Show and Tell," quote unquote. Here's the back of the DVD put out by Vinegar Syndrome. Pick this up. It's about 18 bucks, something like that. And the interesting thing about this film, there's a lot of interesting things about this film, is that it's co-directed by the acclaimed underground filmmaker Kurt McDowell, who is known for the film Thundercrack, which I believe Synapse released. And this is such a unique film. I mean, the title is not gonna totally be what you think it's going to be from the title. There was an alternate title to this film. I believe it was called Without Shame or No Shame or something like that. And this stars Lily Marlin, Cindy Carver, Renee Lovins. Yes. The interesting thing about this film is, it says here on the back, it blends the aesthetics of erotic films and experimental cinema to form a wholly unique sensual exploration. The director, Zachary Youngblood, is also known for a film Deep Tango. So let's get into the film Little Show-Offs here, because what a fascinating film this is. Little Show-Offs from 1983. Talk about, unknown, never heard of. It's a film that shatters the fourth wall, has interview documentary mashing up with behind the scenes filmmaking, mashing up with kind of the psychological valleys and adventures of the theme of sexual fantasy, and the vignette anthology format, as it says in the back, experimental slash surreal experiential filmmaking process, the kind of the experience, the movie that is more of an experience than logical storytelling. Little Show-Offs is mashing up all of these worlds, all of these genres, where the viewer, much like the found footage genre, with films, such as, that popularize it, like, Cannibal Holocaust and The Blair Witch Project and Paranormal Activity, this film will bring the viewer to question what is real and what is not real. And if it's not real, then we have a film that is trying to make something not real appear real. But we also have the possibility that it's a mix of those two worlds, the real and the unreal, and the perspectives of what is real and what is unreal, and the definite freedom of what cinema can be. Lots of style. And Little Show-Offs is also bringing into that world of the style is the substance. Now, this is an anthology film. It's a film that is comprised of multiple stories. But these multiple stories are literally stories that are being described and that you are getting brought into. And you are very much well aware that this is a movie and that these are separate vignettes, and that the people involved in these vignettes know that they're making a movie, that they're making a vignette that we, the viewer, are going to watch. One of the things that I was thinking about before diving into this film more specifically was the fact that I found it very interesting that the majority, the genre of sex films, sexploitation, softcore, hardcore, it seems to be the genre that breaks the fourth wall the most, almost consistently across films. And then I look at the horror genre, and it's interesting that the horror genre seems to me to break the fourth wall the least. And that could have something to do with the fact that the horror genre wants you to believe in what is happening and never taking you out of it. And maybe it's the way with sex films breaking the fourth wall, that it's because they want you to engage with the actors, the people, and the sexuality of the film on a personal level, beyond the film, where you're actually in the film in a way. So I think about the film that I looked at on this YouTube page called Cat House Fever, where you're kind of at the end of the film, Becky Savage kind of narrates throughout the film, but at the end of the film, she says to the viewer, maybe I'll fuck you one day, something like that. Now, this is an X-rated film, and little show-offs. What style? What style in this film? What style? We have these wonderfully artistic credit sequences or title sequences for each one of the stories in this film. Whenever we have interview footage that could be cut into the stories, or before the stories or after the stories, or just the audio from those stories, the interview segments are all black and white. And we have almost like this stop motion type title sequences for each one of these vignettes, for each one of these stories. Very, very unique and interesting. We have great usage of lighting, and we have elements where we actually see the cameraman, sometimes where we actually hear the cameraman. And you'll actually get a little taste of that as soon as you push play in the film, from the opening credit sequence of the entire film. And there's so much style and kind of an avant-garde, renegade, guerrilla cinema type of vibe that you're watching a documentary, or is it a mockumentary? And it's a documentary on sexual fantasies. And we start to see, there's a very interesting premise in this film that the people that are being interviewed about their sexual fantasies are now going to partake in a film, in a story, in a vignette based upon those sexual fantasies, where they're actually going to have sex. Such a unique, interesting premise. Musically, each one of the vignettes has its own music, because each one of the vignettes has its own style. We have everything from just amazing electronic synth 80s, otherworldly, like late night sleazy disco club, 80s club, new wave type music mixed with Middle Eastern music, mixed with Gregorian chants, Christian music, like kind of church hymns. We have so many different worlds represented in here musically. There's a ton of diversity, and it is just an unbelievable experience to hear all of it represented through each one of these stories. Each one of these stories is a different world. Each one of the vignettes is a totally different world with based upon totally different sexual fantasies. And the interesting thing is that even within these worlds, there's a very surreal quality, because there are cuts in between the sex scenes, in between the vignette stories of characters that you're not really aware of who they are, like this mysterious piano player. Is that the husband? You're not exactly sure who these people are. The piano player is actually playing the music that's part of the kind of the classical music that's part of that particular vignette, and he's just kind of cut into the sex scenes. Sometimes a couple will be having sex and they'll be doing one thing, and then it'll cut to them kind of doing something completely different. One ejaculation scene on the face, and that same couple will be having an ejaculation scene, on the chest. It's as if their sexual play is divided into separate worlds, just like the vignettes are separate worlds within this one film, Little Show-Offs. And the alternate title of this film, I think it's something along the lines of No Shame or something like that, is so great because the exploration of sexual fantasy, and I absolutely love the interviewer who was interviewing all of the people in this film, there is no shame. There total freedom, no shock at all. No matter what he's talking about, no matter what he's, no matter what answers he's getting from the people about what their sexual fantasies are, there's no shock at all. It's gleeful, it's free, and it's almost like a counseling environment of sorts where you are able to speak freely. You're able to express yourself freely on what your innermost fantasies and desires are, no matter how weird or freaky or wild or maybe even you know, out of the out of the cultural norms or religious norms, or and there are some very interesting ones. Even speaking of religion, with the Gregorian chant music, there's some interesting ones involving the church and the church mixing with voyeurism and exhibitionism. Now, the sexual fantasies are bizarre and elaborate and very specific, just the way real sexual fantasies are. A lot of times people will discuss their sexual fantasies in extremely tamer ways than what's actually within their head. They'll express their sexual fantasies in, you know, kind of a more of a PG-13 way, or more of a kind of making it a little bit more politically correct or a little bit more socially acceptable. And in this film, Little Show-Offs, you know, we have the people actually just expressing it completely for what it is, real, bare bones. My favorite piece of music in this entire film, without a doubt, is the first story, the first vignette. It's also very freaking bizarre. Deals with this, like, almost this futuristic machine of sorts. It's never quite explained. And what's interesting is that the first story kind of directly deals with pulling fantasies out of people, like a machine doing that. And it did it so much so that I thought that was going to be kind of the wraparound story, but it wasn't. It was one of the stories. The interesting thing is you'll have people having sex in a scene, then all of a sudden other characters dancing, or those characters that are having sex, they're now dancing naked. You know, there is a very timeless, surreal quality to the stories in this film for a film that is so documentary-like. And mixing all those things together is what makes it so wild and so crazy and such a unique film. Within the first 2 minutes of this movie, I was watching it. It was later at night, and I was tired, and I said, "Oh man, I hope I can, you know, watch this film, or I'll just turn it off if I'm too tired. I don't want to waste it." And within 2 or 3 minutes, I was absolutely engaged because I realized that I was not watching something normal. This was something really interestingly bizarre, almost in a modern sense for kind of indie filmmaking of sorts. Now, sexually speaking, the film, since it deals with sexual fantasies, it deals with so many different, you know, types of sexual intricacies and things like that, from two girls and one guy to lesbianism to, as I said, the Catholic Church mixing in there, and kind of the bad boy, and even a fetish with having sex standing up, or a fetish of motorcycles. Or there's lots of a fetish of motorcycles. There's lots of ass play, you know, oral anal, and there's great shots of girls' butts in this film. There is some interesting stuff happening with male ejaculation in the film. I don't want to give away too much. There's lots of facials. They even have kind of the older woman and the younger guy. We got the teacher-student fantasy. And all the girls are very sexually attractive in different ways in this film. I thought they all looked awesome. And it was just you know, there's a lot of diversity in the guys too, maybe in, you know, in their styles, the men in the film and their styles, and even the women themselves also in their styles and in their outfits or their fetishes, as each vignette has different styles. Little Show-Offs is really something amazing. It's something completely unique in the X-rated world. 6 vignettes and just something just absolutely wild. Now, keep your eyes peeled because there's a woman in here who's playing multiple roles in various vignettes. You'll see some people doing that, who's also working behind the scenes, and I believe she actually was, who I believe is the woman who plays the killer in Babyface by Alex Dorenzi. And I've been seeing her popping up in other films, other X-rated films recently, and she is in here with very long hair and just really a mysterious character she is. Her name might be Molly Seagram. I'm not exactly sure. I think it is, and there's an audio interview with her. And if it is her, she's a script supervisor and assistant director. And there's also an audio interview with this particular person, if it is Molly Seagram, on the Babyface Blu-ray by Vinegar Syndrome as well. So here's Little Show-Offs, 1983. Such a interesting film. Oh yeah, we even deal with incest. So guys, thank you so much for watching the 10 Room Bizarro YouTube page, where I talk about films like Little Show-Offs that I believe need to be talked about more. We're going to get a little bit of sexual philosophy in here, even a little sexual theology in here as well, and psychology. It's all in this film here, folks. Please feel free to check out my own personal films at youtube.com/poopy, Poopy, diarrhea. Thank you so much, and good night.